So all NGOs really face the sort of the same challenges. We go for the same funding. We all are applying for the same calls and so on, which means that that pool of funding becomes really small because we are all sort of, going after that piece of pie. But I mean, I think what we need to explore in this conversation today is how do we shift our thinking as NGOs? What are the possible opportunities that can be utilized for us to move from, how NGOs have operated over a long period of time to maybe new ways of thinking and how we can use perhaps the farming as an outlet for that development. So Siakolo founded in 2001. I think it was formally registered in 2001, but work really started a few years earlier than that, but formalized in 2001. So we have been in existence for close to actually 30 years. So our mission is to really, how do we make impact and touch people's life through, purposeful programs, not just programs, but purposeful programs that aim to cultivate self-sufficiency. So that's very key for us. How do we create self-sufficiency amongst the communities or the people that we are working with? Obviously, there's a lack of service deliveries in the communities that we work in. So that is also becomes a very important aspect of our work. We deliver in critical services and opportunities. We empower those that we work with across our province. And lately, we are now even in other parts of the world. Yeah. So if you can go to the next slide, thanks. So, I mean, some of the challenges, what are the challenges that donor-funded organizations face? And they are generally the same across the board. Financial instability. So what happens is you move from one program to another, whether it's an EPWP, CWP, Social Employment Fund. When those programs come to an end, there's generally financial instability, there's generally cash flow challenges that come with that, because we are chasing projects or programs that generally have a very short lifespan. So that is constantly, as an NGO NPC, you're constantly looking for programs to continue going. But because you are dependent on funding, then you come into financial issues. But also most of the times, because we don't generally don't have our own programs, you're constantly applying for different types of funding. Jobs fund comes, now there's this fund that has come. You're trying to respond to everything as an NGO because you really want to get the money into the organization. This can really lead to a mission drift because now you're just trying to respond to everything that's out there. But what we find as well is you might have a 2-year or 3-year program. If you're fortunate, you really build good teams. You now have good teams in place. You have people that are reliable, that are delivering at a high level. Now, all of a sudden, that program or that project comes to an end. It means you really lose key stuff that you have, a team that is skilled, that you've been working with, now has to go because that program has ended. Yeah, but generally inconsistencies. It's inconsistencies for the beneficiaries that benefit from those programs, but also in the organizations. Yeah, so no sustainability for the organization themselves. So as we reimagine how we work as NGOs, we need to say, how do we create mechanisms or ways to ensure that we can sort of become sustainable or become more sustainable as an organization? So because we are donor funded, we lack sustainability because we are dependent on that funding. So it's how do we change our minds? How do we shift in that thinking? But also what we find is that, you get CWP this year and the funders are like, oh, we've given it to you for a long period of time. Now we need to shift. We need to get other people to benefit from this fund. So we're going to have to change. But I guess the biggest one really that we are all sort of experiencing in recent times is the USAID moving out of not just South Africa, but yeah, next slide, not just South Africa, but other African countries and how that impacted those colleagues and those NGOs, because all of a sudden they don't have jobs and it's an immediate freeze. So that becomes problematic. Please move to the next slide. So I think today the core of this conversation is how can we use agriculture perhaps as a tool to push social enterprises? And the question becomes, well, why should we use agriculture as a tool? Can agriculture be used as a tool to create sustainability, to create sort of continuity? And I've listed some of the reasons, in this slide to say there's generally an opportunity for economic growth in this space. There's so much potential that can be tapped by utilizing available land that we have in the different communities where we are in the Eastern Cape, specifically in the areas that we are serving. The land is available. So how do you use that as a tool to create sustainability? But also through agriculture, poverty can be reduced. We generally come across a lot of sort of the active skilled laborers that we have in our communities living for Johannesburg, Cape Town, and so on. But if we were to create opportunities for those participants or for those communities, we would see that most of that sort of migration, all that active labor would stay and be able to utilize land where they are. As I said, where we are in the Eastern Cape, I'm sure it will be the same across the board. There is access to land that can be used to create the sustainability, which makes it very attractive, because in terms of just your asset-based community development, it's an asset that's available. But also what we are finding is that there's a market that's available for different kinds of agricultural produce. So there is a ready market. Whether one, goes into later the export market, when you have access to international market and using maybe the AGOA that's under question currently, but also the African continent free trade area provides now, I know it's still being sort of finalized, but that provides stability or access to other markets beyond ourselves for agricultural products. We have access to labor, but also depending on the type of agriculture that you are concentrating on, agroecology has become very, very attractive because it's good for the environment. It's good for climate. There's a regenerative process that makes sure that the land that you're working with is constantly taken care of. And we're finding that there's a lot of funding that is being channeled through organic farming processes and agroecology. But in general, I think in most of these areas, there is also access to water. Next slide. So, I am going to talk now, we don't have a lot of time, about some of the sort of case studies of some of the spaces that we have worked in as Siyakolwa in trying to utilize agriculture and agro-processing as a way of stabilizing income and sustainability for NGOs. To begin with, we are talking about incubation as being a tool that can be used to create this kind of as an access way to farm. Why incubation? Because when you're incubating a number of farmers, generally the people that you're working with in agriculture do not have the skills, do not have credit worthiness required for them to access funds. But if you come in as an NGO and you represent the different farmers in your communities, then the funders are able to tap into your own track record as an NGO to access the farmers that you want to work with. And we've really seen some success within this incubation process. So the one that we're talking about now is really primarily funded through the Social Employment Fund. It's in Mthatha. That's where we have started this process. This one is still sort of being trialed. The second one will be we give more information on stuff that we've done over a long period of time. But where we are is we are working within that Social Employment Fund structure We are working with the 10 months that you are given per phase. And so the Agri Pathway Business is an innovative program designed to empower aspiring farmers and agripreneurs with the skills, resources, knowledge to launch, sustain profitable farming enterprises, targeting a diverse group of individuals and fostering entrepreneurial thinking, technique, experience in the agricultural sector. So what we are finding is you cannot later on, please go to the next slide, you cannot later on decide to become, you need to think scale from the beginning as an implementer of this. So you can't bring in people and they're like, well, we're gonna farm for a short period of time, then later, then we try to make you commercial. It doesn't work. We need to have the thinking already instilled in the beneficiaries that you're working with. And how this works in such a way that because you, as the NGO that is incubating, you are the one that creates a market for a market for all the things or the products that your beneficiaries or your farmers are producing. So our strategic incubation model is as follows. We really offer intensive hands-on opportunity. So you are journeying with farmers that do not have the skills. So you're journeying with them. We are giving them training so that they can become the next generation of commercial agricultural entrepreneurs. What are we solving? We are provide a structured, practical training for our beneficiaries. We facilitate access to markets and maintain long-term relationships for sustainability. So as you are shifting as NGOs, not only are you creating businesses, but you are the one that is primarily involved with marketing all the products that are produced within your structure, within the communities. This is where you're able to, as you're funding, you're able to access funding, you're able to put project management fees in that, but also as you're marketing, you're able to get a percentage of some of those sales revenue to sustain yourself. It's all upfront. The farmers need to be told that this is how it works. This is the cost that we're going to, because you are being trained. We have a hub incubator. This is how it works. This is the portion that we are taking as the incubator to sustain ourselves. So funding and costs, so you're ensuring that it's funded correctly. So we are in this particular example, we are using SAFE, but we are creating a model that is able to work beyond SAFE. So SAFE funding can be used, but you can also be able to access other funding. Then through the communities, we're able to access infrastructure and land that can be used for this. Next slide. So briefly, our model in Tata, we have 25 farmers over a period of 10 months. What we have had to really establish is to say, what is the smallest unit of land that can be used to incubate someone? And we are saying 0.52 hectares is what we are saying is possible, because you need to think about that. When you're thinking about scale, it needs to be able to make sense at the smallest unit of land or per incubator. If it doesn't make sense at that level, then it's not going to make sense at scale. So what we are saying is our farmers need to be grade trained, they get certificates, and what we're also saying is you need to be able to know what are the costs going in, what are the costs going out. So in this model, we are saying with 15,000 rand, you're able to set up the farmer, and next slide, please. We are able to set up with the 0.25 hectare with 15,000. And if you can go to the next slide, thank you. You're able to set that up for 2.5 hectares, but we are saying within the first 10 months, all the money that is made by a SAFE participant, it's not given to them. It's money that is kept in a central place, because they are still getting income from social employment fund. Those funds are kept so that when you go to phase 2, there is enough money in the kitty to enable the farmers to be able to be exited off a SAFE program into starting their own enterprise. So this is, and also what we are saying is we are looking for big portions of land where you can incubate a big number of farmers together at the same time. This allows them to learn. This allows them to be able to share information. You can train them. It's easier for you to train, but also as the NGO, as the incubator, you're able to say, I've got spinach, I've got cabbages, and I've all of this. How do I market this into the retail space together? And farmer A will know this is my projections for what I farmed. Farmer 2 will know this is what these are my projections and income projections, and they are paid like that.
Mr. Sure, we are running out of time. If you can just quickly wrap up before we take the questions.
Yeah, can I have the next slides then? Sorry, I think the technical glitches sort of messed me up. If we can go to the next slide, I'll take 3 minutes on it. You can skip those ones. Next one. So Kobo essential oils is this we have really facilitated over a 10-year period. What we are doing is there in our context, high unemployment and so on. Next slide. We have successfully incubated 8 farmers, each with 5 hectares of land, producing rosemary that is dried to produce a herb, but also distilled to produce an oil. Just next slide. So with this, we've been able to do over a 10-year period of time. We are now a profitable business that is producing and exporting into the United States market. In the last 6 months, we have dispatched 5 containers of 20 tons of dried herb. The farmers that we're working with are at a place where they're able to make between 200 and 300,000 annually from the produce. So what we have done, same principle, we help the farmers to be set up. Next slide. Now they are producing rosemary that's brought to a central place where it's processed. In the processing, it's dried, it's distilled, it's packaged, and ourselves as the hub, we're able then to sell that into the international market. In that process, we're able to make funds for ourselves. But ultimately, what is important is to make sure that the farmers that we work with are sustainable, but ourselves as the hub, we are also sustainable. Because if the 2 of us are not sustainable, it's not going to work. But this is a model that we have tried, and we're excited to say we have seen the growth, we've seen the stability that comes with a social enterprise that's able to generate funding, that's able to tap into international market and meet and compete at that level. The last slide, and I'm done. Last slide. Yeah, so we have 60 hectares in total, 8 farmers. Questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tafara, for such an incredible and thought-provoking presentation. We really appreciate it. I mean, you have highlighted on some of the real challenges that continue to be a nightmare for many NGOs, particularly around funding, uncertainty, and lack of resources. I see the energy in the chat is incredible. There are a couple of some questions. We're just gonna go with the first one. So the question says, how does Siyakolwa envision scaling the agribusiness incubation model to other regions beyond Kismakhoek? I think that's the name of the area.
Okay.
Yeah, if you can just quickly touch on that question, that would be perfect.
So we have moved already. So the essential oils incubator is the only one that's in Kismakhoek. The first case study that I used of the agri incubator for 0.25 hectares is in Tata already. That has been operational. We have begun harvesting. We are already through SEF, will be operating or will be launching in Gauteng because we have a presence there in Mulder's Drift. We have already secured 5 hectares in that space. So it's already moving, yes, and we have ability actually to be able to scale anywhere else. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Tafara. Off to the next one. What mechanism are in place to ensure continued support for SAFE participants after they exit the program?
So the money that they're making while we are setting them up, that all those funds are kept. So they're getting a SAFE stipend. So while they're getting a SAFE stipend, they are not using any proceeds from their own fields. They only really start tapping into those funds when they are going into second phase. So with vegetables, almost generally 3 to 4 months phase. So we want to do at least 2 phases while they're in SAFE. Once those 2 phases have been completed, we would have had enough money saved for them to be able to launch their own farming operations outside of the SAFE program. SAFE is quite big on exit pathways, and the funds that we make while they are on SAFE are kept, and the continuous support is there beyond them leaving SAFE. But also from the onset, we tell them, you are being enrolled into this program because we would like you to exit SAFE. And once you exit SAFE, you'll be running your own business. So we save funds, we give them continued support to ensure that beyond SAFE they're able to, because we still help them with the marketing, we're still helping them with the agronomic side of things.
All right. Thank you, Tafara. Unfortunately, we can't take all the questions now. We'll just leave your details in the chat box, and then we'll continue with the conversation offline. Thank you for your time, and thank you for the questions. Tafara, it's our time to move forward now. Thank you so much. Alrighty. So moving right along, allow me to introduce our next speaker, someone who is equally passionate about sustainable development and has been driving impactful work in their field, a true pioneer in the field of sustainable agriculture and social enterprise, a woman whose name has become synonymous with innovation, resilience, and impact. Ms. Nonhlanhla Joye is the CEO of Umgibe Farming Organics, a multi-award winning farmer, social entrepreneur, public speaker, skills development facilitator, and food security activist. She also serves as an advisory board member for the SA Food Lab. One of her standout achievements includes being named the 2020 Continental winner of the Pan-African Awards as Africa's most influential woman in business and government, agricultural sector, an honor that speaks volumes about her influence on the continent. And most recently, in 2024, she has recognized as the ASEB Entrepreneur Education Champion of the Year, an achievement that affirms her ongoing commitment to empowering communities through knowledge, skills, and enterprise. These awards are just a few highlights amongst many others, both locally and internationally, that reflects her outstanding contribution to sustainable development. Please join me in welcoming to our Seriti Talks the remarkable Ms. Nonhlanhla Joye. Nonhlanhla, over to you. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. It is such an honor to be invited by Seriti on the Seriti Talks because what they've asked me to talk about is something that I'm truly passionate about. I'm going to start with a very small and short, what you call introduction of myself. In 2014, I was diagnosed with cancer and I found myself without food. I could not feed my family. I could not work. And that was a very difficult time for me. However, as a mother, a woman, and a human being, I had to try and find ways of feeding myself. And I grew some vegetables in the backyard. And that's how I started the journey of where I am today. But it didn't go as easy as I'm putting it now. What happened was the chickens from the neighbors ate everything on site, and I was back to square one. So I had to try and innovate around my issues. I designed a system that allowed me to grow vegetables in a very small space using plastic bags and discarded planks, and it worked. I found myself a few weeks later with food on my table, with money from the excess of what I was actually growing. To be precise, I made about 13,500 out of that small little crop that I had done, because what happened was I processed the vegetables that I had. So I was able to add value from a bunch of spinach that could have only sold for 10 Rand to 5 kgs being around about 200 and something Rand. And that is why, for me, it is important to talk on the topic that I am talking on today, of building sustainable communities through the income generation projects. After my dilemma, I decided to teach other people, because I realized that there was millions of people out there who were undergoing the same path that I was going through, or the patch that I was going through. But I realized that even though there are charity organizations around, they only come once a week, or you don't get to get anything at all. As the previous speaker said, donor funds are slowly shrinking, and it has been like that for some time. It's just that it became a shock this year because of what is happening with the withdrawal of some of the funds that were given to the NGOs. So I decided to take a different approach. How did I do that? I taught people to grow food for themselves. But out of growing food for themselves, we also collaborated to put our food surplus together and sell it, so that we could make more than just what you call a subsistence farming plots, but to be able to sell and what you call reinvest and be able to go further. That was the path that we decided. Over the past 9, because I'm almost 10 years now in this, I've been able to train more than 4,852 farmers into growing their own food, but not just for consumption, but also for making money. Because I realized that if I am always having my hands out there for the donors to donate, we are going to create a dependency syndrome whereby people are not willing to do anything. So our approach is like this at Umgibe. We teach people. First, we go on a mindset change whereby we tell you brutally, but very nicely, that you are dependent upon yourself. There is no one who is waiting out there to just come and help you. You need to be able to help yourself. So that is the approach we've been doing, growing for yourself, being self-sufficient, then selling. We've got a continuum at Umgibe that we work on. We find people at a survival stage, which is where I was, and then we move them to a subsistence stage, and then we move them from subsistence stage to livelihood. From livelihood, then you can start thinking about pre-commercialization, and then after that, you're a commercial farmer. And that is what we're doing, because I am dealing with small-scale farmers. What I have noticed along the way is that with farmers, they farm. They do all the right things. And people want produce from farmers. They're all chasing a farmer. But most people don't know what the farmer needs. And that is where I come from for the farmers. Because I say farmers only need a fair price, market access, that is going to give them a fair price that is going to make them self-sustainable. So we have introduced programs that are not talking about just being a small-scale farmer, just feeding yourself, but that are talking about the entrepreneurial mind in the rural areas where the poverty hits most. And we are also trying to combat the migration of our youth from our own rural areas to urban areas where they find themselves homeless at times and starting criminal activities. So our approach is, if I have somebody who has got an entrepreneurial mind, let us cultivate that. So currently we have about 165 entrepreneurs that are working their own fields. And we are incubating in one proving ground 45 in Echozini, and that gives them a chance of being able to produce in an environment that is conducive for their growth. We don't just take anyone, we take those that we think that they've got that X factor to actually grow. And you find out that they were growing in just a quarter of an hectare, and now they've moved to growing on a full hectare or a half a hectare, to be able to grow their revenue. For example, 13 of our farmers are growing 44,000 cabbages per hectare, and with an offtake agreement that gives them 12 rand per head. And that is a revenue that is more than 400,000 per entrepreneur. And that helps them to be able to then be able to go to their own places. If they didn't have irrigation, they are going to be able to do that for themselves now. If they did not have what you call fencing, they're going to be able to do that using the money that they've earned from the proving ground, because that's where they prove themselves if they are capable of being scaled to the next what call level. we've tried working with them from their own places, and we found out that they've got a lot of issues. Some don't have water, some don't have that. So you have these people in one program, but they are starting at different levels, because another one that should be putting all the production money into production, they have to struggle with infrastructure and all these other external elements that they had not actually budgeted for. So we decided that no, it's best to have them under one proving ground, being able to move from there to their own what we call places. This is done over a period of 12 months. And after that, if the person says, I need 2 hectares, we then are able to give them 2 hectares, because the expansion and everything is being seen there, and we are able to monitor the impact under a controlled environment. One of the things that we also have discovered is that as much as the donor funding, Umgibe is a social enterprise, as much as the donor funding is helpful, it doesn't help us as Umgibe, as an implementer on the ground for these entrepreneurs. If we are not growing, then it means the sustainability of that program or of that project is not going to go beyond the period that it was given to. So the proving grounds are a way of saying that now you can spread your wings after being incubated, and you can now also go to your own community and be an example, a living example, and it makes life much more easy. What do we then do with the produce? The produce, not all the produce that we supply or that we grow is able to make it to the market. Then we process. We process different types of products. We do beetroot wine, we do banana wine, we do processed dressed chickens as well on the broiler production side. We do herbs, spices, we grow chilies, we do powdered chilies. We even do sweet potato maheu, which is a fermented drink that is made out of sweet potatoes that is gluten-free. So when the entrepreneurs are here, they are not just doing primary agriculture, but they are taught to do everything in the value chain. And then some of them, they'll find their niche. Others say, I just want to be a chef. I want to use the ingredients that I'm getting from my peers, and I'm going to be able to do that. So we have developed the whole value chain in the agri-processing part of things, and we are currently together with all the entrepreneurs and everything. We've reached a mark of about what we call 6.7 million gross revenue doing things together. So this is my own what we call contribution into the world of sustainability. When we train our youth, the skills, we give them skills, it's something that nobody can ever take away from them. And over the years, we realized that we cannot actually build the future for our youth, but we can build our youth for the future. So our core values and principles are founded on making sure that we promote youth entrepreneurship and women entrepreneurship. And it is working, because all along farmers were known as just people who are doing primary agriculture. And when a person thinks about agriculture, they were thinking about dirty hands and dirty feet, and no one wants to do that. But we have created a pathway, a value chain that encompasses all the journeys throughout to the end user. And Umgibe is working with youth, working with partners like Momentum Foundation, Seriti. We work with different partnerships, because we found out that where we are lacking as Umgibe, other organizations are more able to help us. So it benefits to partner, because with other farmers, because there's reliable and consistent supply, and there's when we are working on the proving grounds, we've got an enhanced quality control. It's also cost effective, because it's moving from one place to the pack house, from the pack house straight to the what you call, to the client. And
Majoye, let's just wrap up in the next 2 minutes.
Okay.
Running out of time.
To come to an end, we as Umgibe are inviting other organizations, be it NGOs or social enterprises, to try and collaborate. Let's work together. The problem we are facing is not a silo one, but it is including everyone. And lastly, let's promote community-driven initiatives. And together we are an ocean. Individually, we are just mere raindrops. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Majoye. Thank you for such an insightful presentation. It's truly eye-opening. I mean, you've given us a lot to think about, especially on the concept of partnership, or rather collaboration. I hope everyone agrees that this was truly valuable. Let's turn to the chat box and take one or two questions. I'm gonna stop sharing the screen now. Alrighty. Okay, let's just start with one from Anonymous. It's they're saying, such an inspiring story, Majoye. What message would you share with young people to encourage them to thrive in this sector?
I would say there is no one that is responsible for where you are going. The journey starts with you. It doesn't matter how little you have. I started with 400 Rand. So if you can still buy a cold drink, a Savannah or whatever, it means you've got the means to start. So youth, there is life in agriculture.
All right. Thank you, Majoye. I mean, I truly resonate with what Tsepang Sitole is saying in the chat box. Tsepang is saying, how can they help our youth for the exit program after they have provided them with training or skills? Reason being is that some have been trained, but they still didn't have such opportunities. Majoye, over to you.
It depends. Currently, I'm working with youth from KZN and Limpopo, and so it depends on the partnerships that we have on the ground. Because as Umgibe, we are a business. We are a for-profit business. We are a social enterprise. However, if people want Umgibe to mentor them or to supply, if they've already been trained, but they don't have any means, we supply a lot of clients. So you can register to become one of our suppliers, depending on where you are. We can be able, because we even supply in Johannesburg and Cape Town.
All right. Thank you, Majoye. While we still have some bit of time, what are, your key takeaways from this session? I think I'm just gonna hand it over to you and Tafara.
My takeaway. Oh no.
Okay, I thought you were going to start there. Yeah, I think first off, really impressive work, Majoy. It's really impressive. The kind of work that you have done and the ground that you have covered is really impressive. Well done. Key takeaway for me, I think not that I didn't know. Can you hear me? It's just too quiet.
Yeah, you're audible, Tafara.
Yeah. Not that I didn't know, but to say it's possible. And then I think really the power of partnership, the power of starting. When you make an example of the 400 rand that you're talking about, for me is, people have access to 350, unemployed youths and so on. So I think it's really saying the heart to say, I need to start. I need to take step one. And you may take step one without knowing what step two will look like. But if you don't take step one, you will never get to step two. And I think that's just really the spirit that we need to embody as a country, as a continent, to take us to the next level, because we have what it takes. And I think we need to believe that we have what it takes. Here is this land. I mean, it can be made political. We are not politicians, but we want to make sure that this land can work for us, can work for the NGOs that we are serving. And I mean, it's possible. And let's just all take that one step. And I believe that as we take one step, the other steps will become clearer. Yeah, and it can be done. Thanks. Those will be my takeaways. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Tafara. Majoye?
For me, my takeaway was that we are working towards the same goal. Because when I was listening to Tafara, I found out that what he is doing is exactly what we are doing. So I think collaboration is everything in this matter. And with platforms like what Seriti has given us today, I think we should grab these opportunities with both hands. And it should not just be a webinar that was here, and after it's finished, everyone forgets about what was happening here and the purpose of why we are here in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Majoye, and thank you, Tafara, for joining us. And thank you for our participants. I mean, thank you for keeping the chat box very interactive and engaging. And let's not stop here. Let's keep the momentum going by joining the Seriti social media platforms. Share your thoughts, tag us, and let us know how you're going to be applying today's insights in your own work or your community. Would love to keep the dialogue alive just beyond this webinar, as Majoye is saying. So as we wrap up, if there are any questions we didn't get to during the session, because we are really working on time, unfortunately, we'll be sharing our speakers' contact details in the follow-up communication, so that you can continue the conversation with them offline and engage more deeply with the ideas that were shared today. And once again, a huge thank you for our speakers for their time, generosity, and powerful contributions. and to all who have participated today, asking questions and showing up with such enthusiasm. From all of us at Seriti Institute, thank you for your time, your energy, and your continued work in building sustainable and inclusive change. I think we can add the webinar. Thank you so much.